Hi friends. So I was watching Democracy Now! Giving interviewing Kevin Anderson, who's a climate scientist, and also interviewing Greta Thunberg, who's a very young climate activist. She's from Sweden, and she was for a long time sitting outside every Friday the Swedish Parliament with trying to get them to act on climate, on the climate crisis. And I don't know how long she was doing that for, but it was every Friday, and then during a school holiday she'd sit outside, and then other children started sitting with her. I don't know, I think she looks like she's about 14 or 15. She's very eloquent, and she was giving a speech at the recent climate conference, the COP24 in Poland. And she was saying, people say, oh, you should become a climate scientist, and then you can sort of, advocate for whatever. And she said there's no real need for any further information on the science about the climate crisis, which is so true,
My name is Greta Thunberg. I am 15 years old and I'm from Sweden. I speak on behalf of Climate Justice Now. Many people say that Sweden is just a small country and it doesn't matter what we do. But I've learned that you are never too small to make a difference. And if a few children can get headlines all over the world just by not going to school, then imagine what we could all do together if we really wanted to. But to do that, we have to speak clearly, no matter how uncomfortable that may be. You only speak of green, eternal economic growth because you are too scared of being unpopular. You only talk about moving forward with the same bad ideas that got us into this mess, even when the only sensible thing to do is pull the emergency brake. You are not mature enough to tell it like it is. Even that burden you leave to us children. But I don't care about being popular. I care about climate justice and a living planet. Our civilization is being sacrificed for the opportunity of a very small number of people to continue making enormous amounts of money. Our biosphere is being sacrificed so that rich people in countries like mine can live in luxury. It is the sufferings of the many which pay for the luxuries of the few. The year 2078, I will celebrate my 75th birthday. If I have children, maybe they will spend that day with me. Maybe they will ask me about you. Maybe they will ask why you didn't do anything while there still was time to act. You say you love your children above all else, and yet you are stealing their future in front of their very eyes. Until you start focusing on what needs to be done rather than what is politically possible, there is no hope. We cannot solve a crisis without treating it as a crisis. We need to keep the fossil fuels in the ground, and we need to focus on equity. And if solutions within this system are so impossible to find, then maybe we should change the system itself. We have not come here to beg world leaders to care. You have ignored us in the past, and you will ignore us again. We have run out of excuses, and we are running out of time. We have come here to let you know that change is coming, whether you like it or not. The real power belongs to the people. Thank you.
In fact, somebody who's close to me, who's worked a lot on this issue, in the Australian Parliament said that there was no lack of information, even back in the 80s, about what was going to happen, which is happening right now. There's absolutely there was never a lack of information, even back then, in the 80s. And the information about the science, about what was to come in the 80s, was willfully ignored. And that reason, of course, is because corporations were influencing government back then, and also politicians didn't want to do anything that would require anybody to change anything or interfere with the profits of corporations and so forth. So even way back then, where the writing was on the wall, and this person who's close to me said that she said at about the 2000 mark, she knew that it was absolutely all over. So, however, it's important that we keep doing what we can to get this to get these sad excuses for leaders to act, of course. But there is something that I note that that most people who want a Green New Deal, most activists who want a Green New Deal, who want radical change on the way we are living in relation to the earth, radical change in the way we are conducting ourselves as a species on this planet. I'm sorry to keep harping on about this, but every time I watch an interview, I see a complete conspicuous absence, is that we need to go vegan. This isn't some sort of optional thing. It's not irrelevant, this issue, and yet people completely ignore it, that animal agriculture is arguably the greatest driver of climate change, plus the acidification of the oceans and the destruction of lands. It's the greatest driver of the sixth mass extinction, and this is a science-based fact. It isn't something that's made up by vegans. It isn't something that's made up by hippies. It is a science-based fact that animal agriculture is arguably the greatest driver of the climate crisis and the sixth mass extinction. And I'm going to post a couple of memes in this so that you can check out. There was a recent study, one of the largest study to date about this issue. 119 countries and 40,000 farms where this research took place, and from farm to fork. And the conclusion of that largest study to date is that the greatest single action anyone can take to address the climate crisis, to address the destruction of the oceans, the destruction of lands, to address the sixth mass extinction, is to go vegan, is to adopt a plant-based diet. Now, veganism is more than a plant-based diet, it's an ethical position. And normally I don't talk about veganism in terms of ancillary benefits of health and of climate change. However, I feel at this point I need to do that because it is an ethical thing to go vegan. Not only the most important reason, because we don't have the rights to torture and kill 1 trillion land and aquatic animals. That's a conservative statistic. every year for trivial reasons of mostly palate pleasure, habit, convenience, tradition. We don't have the right to do that. It's completely unnecessary that we're consuming animal products. We can easily meet all our nutrition requirements from plants and other non-animal sources. So the only reason we're destroying the lives, sentient animals, just like the dogs and cats whom we love, who live in our homes, we call family members, we're destroying the lives of these sentient animals is because we think they taste good. We don't need to use animal products at all. Okay, so that's the most important reason to be vegan. That's the usual reason I talk about. It's an ethical position. The term was coined by Donald Watson in 1944. That was the reason he was going vegan then. Okay, so, but now it is an ethical position to go vegan for the planet, because non-human animals are 99.99% of the planet's population, and also humans are animals too. And so if we don't go vegan, we're directly participating in the destruction of humans' habitat too, and we're, participating in, it's completely unnecessary what we're doing. There's going to be, Bangladesh is going to be underwater. There's 180 million people there. India has built some sort of a wall around Bangladesh because they can see that coming. They say it's because of drug trafficking, but no, it's to stop Bangladeshis from coming across when their land, their country goes underwater. This is the sort of appalling thing that we're facing. So, we need to go vegan, firstly for non-human animals, because they're fellow earthlings and we've never had the right to use them. They're sentient animals. And secondly, because we're contributing not only to world hunger, because a lot of countries grow a lot of grain to transport to these large animal feedlots to feed cows and etc. And these countries are starving. It's also causing massive droughts, which is causing war. It's causing a sixth mass extinction. If we're wringing our hands about the 200 species going extinct every day, we're directly contributing if we're not vegan. Now, there are other things we can do. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can be trying to address politicians, and you can be trying to drive a bicycle or whatever. You can do all those things. But if you're not vegan, you're way behind the 8 ball. You're way, way, way behind. That is the best and most effective thing. The single most important thing is that research says that you can do is to become vegan. More than driving electric cars, not flying planes and so forth. Seriously, are we that sort of attached to animal products that we're willing to just go down like the Titanic and take everybody with us? All these innocent species that are stuck on this planet with us, and we're destroying their home, and we're destroying the homes of other humans. We can do better than that. Are we that addicted to these animal products? Because a plant-based diet is delicious. These animal products are killing us. Check out the China study, the largest nutrition study. It was done many years ago. It's killing us. Check out nutritionfacts.org, which is a science-based nutrition site that checks out all the medical journals and the nutrition journals, all the latest, and collates it all together and gives out these small 2-minute videos about how animal products are destroying us. But they're also, a plant-based diet is the healthiest thing you can do. Eating a balanced plant-based diet is the best thing we can have. It's something our system requires. It doesn't require cholesterol-clogged, decomposing flesh. There's nothing you can get from animal products that you can't get from plants. In fact, you get a lot more. So anyway, I'm begging you, stop ignoring this issue of veganism for the reasons I've mentioned. I'm going to post a link to that, some of the things that I'm going to post some information about the devastation on the water resources. A 1 acre every minute is destroyed by animal agriculture in the Amazon rainforest. Can you imagine that? This is so that we can have our little moments of palate pleasure. It's insane. It's insane what we're doing. And when I see, Democracy Now!, who's only just recently had a fellow on, George Monbiot, who's been back and forth about this issue for so long now, it's sort of sad, but he was actually suggesting we need to adopt a plant-based diet. And remember, veganism is more than a diet, it's an ethical position which rejects using animals for food, clothing, entertainment, and other reasons. And when I say food, I mean meat, dairy, eggs, honey, etc. Okay, but they had George Monbiot on just recently. And then what do when they go to this COP24, Democracy Now!? When they interview people like Greta Thunberg and Kevin Anderson and people like that, they don't even mention it. They don't even mention the necessity to be vegan. It's like it never happened, that interview with George Monbiot. This is what I mean. People treat it as if it's irrelevant or it's optional. It's the other inconvenient truth. I mean, this is ridiculous. It's a science fact. Anybody now who is pushing against the science of animal agriculture being probably you could argue that it is the greatest driver of climate change, climate crisis. If we're arguing about that, then we are literally climate change deniers, climate crisis deniers. I'm going to call it what it is now. If you are saying to yourself and other people and trying to convince them that animal agriculture isn't arguably the greatest driver of climate crisis, then you are literally a climate change denier, a science denier, because it is based on science. It's not some flaky hippies creating these research things. It's not vegans doing it. This is real science. And I'm kind of, it does my head in sometimes when I see otherwise intelligent people continue to ignore this issue. When it's so clear, it is a major, major factor, and it's something that everybody can do. It doesn't require corporations to give you permission. It doesn't require banks to give you permission. It doesn't require politicians to give you permission to be vegan. You can do it right now. And I don't mean cutting back on meat. That's not what veganism is. I mean internalizing the ethical position that we don't have the right to be torturing and killing 1 trillion land and aquatic animals. That's a conservative estimate every year for mostly palate pleasure. I'm talking about internalizing the ethical position and also not being elitist, because that's what it is. Not to be vegan now is elitist. If you're eating animal products and there are people their countries are starving because they're sending grain overseas to these large animal feedlots, or their countries are about to go underwater because you're eating animal products, or you're okay with 200 species going extinct every day, or you're okay with these fucking crazy fires wildfires that are wiping out forests, which are homes to animals too, and that people are dying. If you're okay with wars being caused, like in Syria, I think that war was attributed to the drought that was happening in Syria. There's going to be more and more and more of that. And you're not exempt. Doesn't matter if you live in the West. It's happening to you right now. The climate crisis is happening to you right now. And our consumption of animal products, I normally talk in the we, as in we. But I want to be very, very direct with you right now. If you're not vegan and you are concerned about world hunger and all this kind of thing, then you have to ask yourself why. Are you going to wait for everybody else to go vegan before you go vegan? Are you going to wait for the day when there are no plants to eat, which is coming, by the way, because this climate, you know, people talk about land masses going underwater. That's the least of our worries. This climate crisis is going to end up with us all starving because plants won't be able to grow. That's what we're facing, starvation. It's a lot more than Manhattan going underwater. I love it when I read this stuff. People carry on about land masses going underwater. Seriously, that's the least of people's worries. So you know we have to. I'm sorry that I'm regularly now ranting about this. But I mean, we don't have any more time. We didn't have time left a long time ago. But now it's absolutely critical. People have to snap out of this and stop this ridiculous attachment to these decomposing flesh and secretions of animals. That's what it is, decomposing flesh and secretions filled with hormones and cholesterol, and it's ridiculous. It doesn't belong in our bodies, and why on earth are we hanging on to it? It's killing everybody. It's killing 800,000 people in America alone, directly a result of consumption of animal products. So we're going to have to wake up. Wake the fuck up. Wake the fuck up. You know, I see this over and over and over again. The left the so-called left is as bad as the right in this issue. Just pretending this animal agriculture isn't a thing. You're lucky if you get a decent report on it. Watch Cowspiracy.com. Watch Seaspiracy.com. It's coming out soon. These are two documentaries. The second one I don't think has come out yet. Two documentaries, but also check out the 40,000 farms in 119 countries, the largest research to date on that. It's time to wake up. It's time to stop clinging to bloody animal products. We don't need them, and the plant-based diet is delicious. It's absolutely delicious. I've never eaten better in my life. I've never been healthier in my life. Usually people my age are on all sorts of medications. I'm on no medications. You know, I'm 58 this year. I'm on no medications. I could lose some weight, sure, but I'm on no medications, right? Most people are on loads of medications, cholesterol, statins. That's because the animal products are a disaster for our biology. We're robust frugivores. Check out an omnivore's mouth, a dog's mouth. Their dentition is very different to ours. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that. I just want people to wake up. We've got to wake up now and take control of our lives and of this destiny, because it's imminent human extinction, and imminent extinction of pretty much all other species is coming. It's probably too late. I think it's too late. But still, we have to try. And besides, if you go vegan, you're not participating, you're preventing the torture and killing individually of 100 animals every year. That's a conservative thing, you personally. And all the other benefits of it to the climate, to the environment. So there are a whole bunch of lives at stake. there's a whole bunch of lives that won't be tortured and killed if you go vegan yourself, individually. Let's do it for other animals and do it for ourselves. Let's stop being elitist and eating these products that are a tremendous cost to the planet and to sentient animals and to humans that are in poorer countries and so forth. Let's stop being elitist and supremacist and all sorts of things. Please go vegan, and please check out my vegan resource, howtogovegan.org. One more thing, you know, like I was saying about Greta Thunberg, I think it's great. She's very young, she's very articulate. But Democracy Now! Asked her, so you caught a train and a whatever to come to this thing, as if that's the most important thing she could do. Not, are you vegan, Greta? No. Are you vegan, Kevin Anderson? No. You know, it drives me spare. I mean, that should be the first thing. Amy Goodman should be vegan, and those people should be vegan. Animal agriculture, the industry has got so many fingers in so many pies and giving money to all sorts of corporations and the Diabetes Association and all sorts of things. It's got its finger in all sorts of pies, and that's why so many people, and donating to all sorts of politicians and everything. That's why it's sort of this hush-hush thing that nobody wants to talk about. And also the inconvenience, this so-called inconvenience of becoming vegan. It's not inconvenient, it's very easy. It's very easy, and it's becoming easier every day. Easier every day. And I don't eat pre-made products from the shops. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. You don't have to buy vegan products from the shops. If you want to, fine, but you don't have to. Most vegans I know don't. So this whole thing, oh, it's too expensive to be vegan, nonsense. It's not. There's nothing expensive about beans and grains and leafy vegetables and stuff. There's nothing. And you can make delicious food. There's all kinds of foods. There's tens of thousands of species of plants, and there's like, we use 4 different species of animals, these poor animals. You know, and people are plying them with herbs and, you know, to be able to eat this stuff, and they have to cook them. It doesn't belong in our system. So anyway, let's just go vegan. Let's stop using animals as resources, because they're not, they're sentient. Let's go vegan, and let's save the environment at the same time. And even if we go down like the Titanic anyway, at least we've stopped the participation in the tremendous violence of animal exploitation. And we've also done a lot of benefit to the planet as well. Anyway, my name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Till next time, bye for now.
We're now joined by Greta Thunberg. She has been named one of Time Magazine's most influential teens of 2018. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Greta. It's wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you for having me here.
So you sat outside the Swedish Parliament in September every day when all the other kids were in school. What made you decide to go to the Swedish Parliament?
Well, it started with a couple of youth in the United States refused to go to school because of the school shootings. And then someone I knew said, what if children did that for the climate? And then I thought...
Oh, you're talking about the Parkland students in Parkland, Florida, after the massacre there, Valentine's Day.
And then I thought that was a good idea, that maybe it would make a difference. And then I tried to bring people with me, but no one was really interested, so I had to do it alone.
And
but
so you just...
The second day, people started joining me.
Why climate change? Why is that so important to you?
Because what we do now, future generations can't undo in the future. We are deciding right now how we want our future to look like.
And when did you decide climate change was the issue you wanted to devote your life to?
I mean, I have read a lot about it, and one thing that I found very scary is tipping points. That once we reach tipping points, then there's no going back. Then we start a chain reaction beyond our control, and that is very scary. And so that I thought, instead of worrying about how a future might turn out, you should try to change it while you still can. So that's what I wanted to do.
So how have you changed your life once you started to learn about climate change?
I personally have stopped flying. I have stopped eating meat and dairy.
So let's take these one at a time. You stopped flying, so how did you get here to Poland? You live in Sweden.
Yeah, we went here by electrical car.
How long did it take you to drive here?
2 days, including one night at a hotel.
Mm-hmm. And why did you stop eating meat?
Both of ethical reasons and by ecological reasons.
And what else have you done?
I have a shop stop. It means that you don't buy new things, unless it's absolutely necessary.
Mm-hmm. Talk about what you're wearing, your sweatshirt today.
Oh, this is a shirt from Hundar utan hem, Dogs Without Home, a Swedish organization which give homeless dogs a home.
Do you have dogs?
Yes, I have 2 dogs. One is from there.
One is from that shelter?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So how do you feel being here at the UN Climate Summit? How long have you studied the issue?
We arrived here last Saturday, so a little bit more than a week now we've been here, and I started reading about the climate crisis when I was maybe 9 years old. In school, my teachers, they told me about it, and I thought that it was very strange that humans, who are an animal species among others, could be capable of changing the Earth's climate. Because if that was the case, and if it was really happening, we wouldn't be talking about anything else. But that would be our first priority, but no one ever even mentions it. So I started reading about it, and the more I read about it, the more I understood it. And once you fully understand what it means, you can never go back.
So it's interesting, you are sitting in front of the Swedish parliament every day for 3 weeks, considering most people think of Sweden as one of the most progressive when it comes to climate change.
Yeah, we have a reputation of being very, very green, but Sweden is one of the top 10 countries in the world with the highest ecological footprints per capita. And we have very high emissions per capita, and so we are not a role model.
The emissions have actually gone up in the last year?
Yeah, we have just moved them overseas. Our actual emissions in the country may have reduced, but we have just moved our emissions overseas. We let other countries produce the stuff we consume.
Greta, how do you explain climate change to other kids?
It depends on how old they are, but that we need to change now, because we are not living within the planetary boundaries, and we are risking future generations' future by continuing like this. We need to change ourselves now, because tomorrow it might be too late.
What did the Swedish parliamentarians say as they would pass you each day, going up the stairs and down the stairs?
Most of them ignored me, and then some of them came up to me and said that you're doing a good job, but very few.
So you started getting a lot of attention?
Yeah.
Did people bring you food?
Some.
Did that change what you ate?
No.
Greta's staying with us for the hour, 15-year-old climate activist who came to the UN Climate Summit, where we're broadcasting today, in Katowice, Poland, with her dad, Svante, who is an actor in Sweden, her mother, an opera singer. They came by electric car over 2 days because she refuses to fly. She sat down in front of the Swedish parliament for 3 weeks in September, not going to school. After the Swedish elections, she went to school 4 days a week and continued her sit-in every Friday. Greta, thanks for staying with us. Svante Thunberg is also joining us right now. Svante, how has your daughter changed you?
Oh, in every possible way, I'd say. It started maybe 4 years ago. She was very she got herself in a position where she was learning a lot about the climate change, and she was finding out that everyone was saying one thing and doing the exact other thing, and that she could not cope with. So she fell into a depression. She stopped eating, stopped talking, and she fell out of school and stayed at home for almost a year. And my wife and I we stayed at home with her, of course, and we did everything. I stopped working completely, and we spent all our time with her.
Now, you're a well-known actor. Your wife is a well-known opera singer, and you both gave up your professions.
Yes, my wife is much more well-known than I am. I gave up my career when she was born, actually, because my wife was working overseas. So I basically
housewife.
Yeah, I went to become a housewife instead. So, but I do act sometimes.
And you have 2 daughters.
Yes, we have 2 daughters. Beata as well. Yeah.
So, Greta, can you talk about that time? It sounds extremely painful. A few years ago, when you stopped talking and stopped eating.
Yes, I became very depressed. I fell into depression, and I didn't think that it was. I was so depressed. I didn't see any point of living because everything was just so wrong. And I kind of saw, because I have Asperger's syndrome, so I work a bit different. I see things black and white, and so I guess I saw the world from a different perspective. So I saw what was wrong with the world, and
What does it mean to have Asperger's syndrome?
That my brain works a bit different, and I usually don't enjoy participating in the social game that the rest of you seem so fond of, and I don't like lying, and I see things black or white.
And you focus with laser intensity on an issue.
Yeah.
Your issue, climate change. And Svante, what did this mean for you? How have you raised your daughters to deal with the world and in this crisis when Greta stopped eating and was almost hospitalized?
Yeah, she made us realize that we were these parents, standing up for human rights and refugees and right and wrong and all these things, and we were really fighting for that. And then she said, whose human rights are you standing up for? When my wife, for instance, went to Japan to make concerts and being on Japanese TV, very important. It's a good reason to travel across the world to do that. But when she got home, Greta worked out how many tons of carbon dioxide she had spent on that, and how many people's carbon budget that was living in West Africa, for instance. So she basically, confronted us with that. Whose human rights are you standing up for when you are draining the world's, resources, a functioning atmosphere, for instance, and so we basically realized in the end, after a couple of years of her going on about it, that we had to change. We had to stop doing these things, and that really had an enormous effect because she made her much more happy, and she changed a lot with that. So yeah.
So what made you decide to start eating again and start talking, Greta?
I guess I thought that I could do so much with my life. And what is the point of feeling like this when I could actually do something good? And so, yeah.
Is your sister older or younger than you?
She's 3 years younger than me.
Mm-hmm. And how has she been affected by your choices?
I mean, she has also stopped flying and so on, and she also cares about the climate and the environment. Yeah.
And how has it changed the way you parent, Svante?
Well, it changed. My wife she gave up her international opera career, and she's working out of Sweden now instead, and that was a big change for us. And obviously it's changed a great many other sort of things. I had to go vegan, first of all vegetarian, then I had to go vegan, and I do miss the cheese, I have to, I must confess. But it's, no, I mean...
So what did it mean to you to give up meat and then...
Nothing.
And
really.
then cheese and dairy?
Nothing. It meant nothing. I mean, in the end, you know, we're facing a diet catastrophe, and... But
and
I just didn't realize...
We asked Greta in the first segment why she became a vegetarian. And
Yeah.
are you a vegan also, Greta?
Yeah.
So Svante, what does that mean to you?
Well,
why not have a meat-based diet?
Well, because of the climate crisis. I mean, obviously, we are running out of a budget, okay? I mean, the budget is disappearing before our eyes, and we only have a couple of years, less than a couple of years, to bend the curve, you know, steep down like a roller coaster. And I think I didn't have a clue about the climate crisis before she got us all interested in this. But once you start, you know, walking down that path, there's no going back, and it changes your life is changed in every possible way once you realize, you know, the situation that we're actually in. But I was so amazed that I wasn't aware of it, you know, because I was, you know, very aware. I was reading all the papers and stuff, and I just didn't realize where we were at. Yeah.
What did it mean to you that your parents became vegan? Is your mother also vegan, Greta?
Yeah, she tries.
You're teaching her. So what did that mean to you, how you changed your parents?
I mean, that meant that they were actually listening to what I was saying. And I mean, that was good to feel that someone is listening.
You know, Svante, you talked about basically climate equity, about how when you consume a lot, when the Western countries like Sweden are engaged in fossil fuel pollution, what that means for the developing world. Greta, I'd like to ask you that question, this whole issue of climate equity.
Yeah, I mean, since we have a higher emissions per capita, we must reduce emissions more. And since we already have all the infrastructure and everything that we need to reduce our emissions much more so that the developing countries can have a chance to build some of that infrastructure, and so that the people there can have a chance to heighten their standard of living.
Also, the effects of climate change on other countries that can least afford to cope with the change. We're talking with Svante and Greta Thunberg. Can you talk about your relatives? You are both the descendants of Svante Arrhenius, the Nobel Prize-winning scientist who first calculated the greenhouse effect caused by carbon dioxide emissions in 1896, known to some as the father of climate change science. Svante, you were named after him?
Yes, I was. My family named me after him, or my father did, because he thought, you know, that was very important. But the fact is, they didn't have a clue why he got the Nobel Prize. They, you know, he was just a Nobel Prize winner. Yeah, it's pretty nice, you know, nice title. So he's, my father's born in 1925, he's pretty old, and his grandmother's cousin, I think, is Svante Arrhenius. So, yeah, it runs in the family. I was, you know, I didn't realize until I started reading up on the subject, but yeah, that's our relative, yeah.
And Greta, you are now, when you're not here at the UN Climate Summit, by the way, I want to point out, we're in this building here in Katowice, the main conference center of this city, that is actually shaped like a coal mine. You know, everywhere around us is black, and you sort of descend down. I don't know if you were aware of that. Also, right by the Poland exhibit, which is called Black to Green, did you see this? Are necklaces that have made out of coal hearts. There's coal soap. It's soap in the shape of coal. Maybe kind of celebrating coal. Very interesting when we came to the Warsaw Summit, and it's the only country that has hosted the UN Climate Summit 3 times. It hosted it in Poznan, then in Warsaw, and now we're in Katowice. Katowice, the heart of coal country in Poland. The coal company is clearly very prominent here. Your thoughts on that and what coal means for the world?
I mean, it's just crazy that we are here on the climate change conference, and I think it's sponsored by a coal company. But we need to stop burning coal, as simple as that.
You are protesting every Friday outside the Swedish Parliament now, from every weekday to just Fridays. Why Fridays?
Why not? Fridays are good days. Friday's a good day to strike.
You call it a school strike. You've also been following and tweeting about other school strikes around the world. Yeah. How many have there been?
Oh, I don't know many. Tens of thousands of kids in Australia, also strikes in Belgium, Canada, the US, the UK, Finland, Denmark, Sweden, France, the Netherlands. I probably forgot something now, but yeah, it's a lot of places.
We're talking with 15-year-old climate activist Greta Thunberg, here with her father Svante. Svante, thanks so much for joining us and for bringing Greta here.
Thank you so much.
Greta, by the way, who addressed the world here at the UN Climate Summit. This is Democracy Now! We'll be back.